Emergency Center.
Yes, this is Corey Lambie-Cohen from Marinette High School. We have a student holding an entire class hostage right now.
Okay, who's holding that?
A student is holding an entire class.
Okay, does he have any weapons?
Yes, he does.
What does he have?
He has a pistol.
Imagine an incident like this occurring at your school. Are you prepared? Do you have a school safety plan? Have you conducted a site assessment? Who helped you create your plan? Have you practiced it? Do all of your teachers and staff know what to do? How familiar is your local law enforcement with your plans and facilities? School safety planning is about the art of the possible, and that begins by asking lots of questions. What are you doing to prepare? What are you doing to preempt and prevent a crisis? During this video, we'll help you answer these questions and provide you with the resources you need to be prepared. Our schools are supposed to be safe havens, places for children to learn and grow. If our schools are not safe, our teachers cannot teach, and our students cannot learn.
It shouldn't require an act of courage for parents to send their children to school. If we're going to mandate that students come to school, then we ought to provide an environment that is safe, secure, and peaceful.
Schools are required to provide a safe and secure learning environment for students. And if I'm not safe and the school knows about it, educators know that there's something going on and they're deliberately not taking action, then there could be a potential liability there.
Educators now have a duty to maintain a safe school, and that's code. That's code for liability when educators don't implement rules that are designed to respond to foreseeable risk on the campus. And the law of safe schools, as it is known today by most lawyers of school boards and campus administrators, is designed foremost to avoid liability, and everything else represent the dominoes that fall after that.
How do we create a welcoming climate? And in my view, it begins with the principal of the school, creating that context when students first come onto the campus during the day, having clear behavior expectations, having a place where students feel as though they can be safe, that they can come to someone for help and assistance when they need it.
Principals in a school, the school leader, is instrumental in setting the tone of saying what is important, what do we value, and how are we going to help our students truly have a safe, nurturing learning environment.
Schools are becoming more than just a place where students come to learn. You do much more than just teach. You mentor, counsel, listen, advise, and seemingly more and more, police and adjudicate.
Being an administrator is incredibly daunting and challenging today because there are so many public notices of rights and responsibilities, particularly rights that parents and students have that need to be disclosed. And so as you read many of these student-parent handbooks, paint a picture of the tremendous challenges that the administrator has, because not only are schools required to provide a free public education, but many of the parents want their children to be able to access every potential opportunity for their child's success.
Teachers right now are constantly being challenged by English language learners, students coming into classrooms who don't speak English as their first language. They're looking at the different learning needs of students. And so they're trying to be very aware of using a variety of techniques and strategies in order to reach students. And then you add the factor of what's taking place within our society, within our young people, whether it be, some people would say it's due to media, others would say it's due to the type of video games, some would point to the lack of parental guidance. So all of those factors come in so that you start to bring in a student that might be different than when I was in school.
We have become somewhat of a social services agency. Now that is reprehensible to many educators. To me, we're here for kids. We're here for kids in their academic and intellectual endeavors. We're also here for kids for their emotional and social needs. So we need to program for that.
Many states have passed laws requiring schools to create safe school plans, and most likely, you've developed such a plan for your school. But will it stand up to the ultimate test? Will it stand up to an actual crisis? A review of the best practices has shown us a methodology to creating an effective safe school plan, which begins with a site assessment, a strategic evaluation and facilities audit to help identify safety concerns. Once you've determined where your threats lie, you need to develop an appropriate response to each one, utilizing all the experts available to you.
In order to put an SSP in play, it does not take a lot of money. It takes people who have the time and have the passion to want to help our children and to help our schools so that they can do what they're supposed to do, which is help create productive and healthy citizens for our society. So if you invest a little time, it's going to pay off in big dividends in the end.
In creating a safe school plan, it really begins with the principal who serves as the chief executive officer, operational officer for the school. But creating a safe school plan goes beyond the principal.
This is not the job of a single person. The plan needs to be developed with complete transparency with the group of people that volunteers to be the school safety planning committee, and that should include community members, law enforcement, staff members, should include parents as well.
One of the biggest mistakes a school can make is to buy a plan that has not been developed specifically for that school, because each school building, personnel, and perceived threat is different. So must be the plan. It is essential your plan meets the specific needs of your school.
First part is to really sit back and evaluate, what are my issues in my school? You have to be proactive in your thinking, not reactive. And why I say that is because in crisis, there's resources become available immediately, but why be front page news? If we become proactive and you're surrounded by individuals that you trust, you get a chance to discuss what are some of the issues that are going on. What is our best way of helping to educate other teachers, our volunteers, even our students about the hazards of what they may be faced with. If we become proactive, we're less likely to have to be in a constant reactive mode.
School safety is not about breaking the budget and having to purchase all kinds of high-tech surveillance equipment and develop programs that cost a lot of money. It's more about investing time with youngsters. It's about reviewing your plans and procedures, your processes, and looking at ways that if you were a student, how would you want to be treated? And so in many ways, we're not talking about a lot of money, but we're talking more about attitude.
Every school safety plan needs 3 components: prevention and mitigation, response, and recovery.
The first thing that you want to do is begin with that mission statement, which provides the centerpiece for the development of other policies and procedures. Incorporate school safety into the educational mission. You want to take a look at what that supervision plan is going to be for students throughout the day, before school, after school, during school. You want to take a look at that crisis plan that we've talked about previously that would focus, hopefully as much as anything else, on crisis prevention. But if you can't prevent the crisis, you want to prepare for it, you want to be able to manage it effectively, and you want to be able to have some form of crisis resolution strategies after the event.
It is essential your safe school plan be flexible in order to deal with the countless scenarios you might encounter. Your plans must provide direction, but not dictation.
In New York City, there were 9 schools at Ground Zero that were affected by the bombing of the World Trade Centers. And in the crisis plan, one of the administrators, her evacuation plan was to evacuate to the next elementary school. But that school was also at Ground Zero. The backup plan was to evacuate to yet another school, which was also at Ground Zero. She had the good judgment to say, we're just going to march our kids towards the Brooklyn Bridge. That's what she did. And so when you look at even crisis plans, as wonderful and as nice as they may be, they still need to provide for some good flexibility. It's about reason and good judgment, but it's about having at least a plan in place so you know what you're going to do. Because in the midst of the crisis, you don't have time to sit down and pontificate over options. You want to be prepared.
Here are the important points to remember when creating your safe school plan. Begin the process by conducting a needs assessment. Your plan needs to be an all hazards plan. Work with a variety of experts both inside and outside your school to identify all hazards. Your Safe Schools plan should include 3 parts: prevention, response, and recovery. Practice, review, and revise your plans regularly as situations and hazards change. Plans should provide direction, but not dictation. But a safe school plan does not need to stop there. The Los Angeles Unified School District, for instance, has taken its plan a step further by incorporating a wellness component.
When we first began and first started discussing the merger of the wellness policy with the Safe School Plan, a lot of districts, you could see the light bulbs going on because they'd not thought about that before. It wasn't something that came natural. It was something that it was an opportunity. We saw the connection, we saw how they fit, and we saw how they supported each other. And to this day, we still receive compliments from our administrators, our school staff, our parents, thanking us, saying, you're now looking at the whole child. You're now looking at the bigger picture. You see the bigger picture, and you're helping our schools to understand that.
Creating a safe school plan is only the first step in making your school a safe place. Next, you need to practice, practice, practice.
Safety drills are extremely important in LAUSD. Our people have to, in order to execute and when something happens, they have to know what to expect. And so the drills help them to understand this is what may happen and this is what your role is and this is what you're expected to do.
It's important to have the drill and practice, to have backup plans, and to go very deep into the planning. Even as you think about what your evacuation plan will be or your parent reunification program.
We conduct what we call intruder drills, and we do them at least twice a year. What happens in those situations is an intruder is announced that there's an intruder in the building. Staff go to those procedures automatically, shut their doors, turn off their lights. Students are removed from any sight of being able to see within the building. And then throughout the building, it's checked to make sure that all those procedures were followed.
In the beginning of this video, we saw excerpts from the student hostage incident in Marinette High School in Marinette, Wisconsin on November 29, 2010. Safety agencies in the county conducted an extensive exercise 15 months prior to the November 29th incident. The exercise proved to be the key to the success of the outcome.
Some of the drills that we did inside the school included an active shooter in a room that was identified as room A109. And the incident that occurred on November 29th was in room A111. And the officers that were staged at the internal security points were actually in front of the door for A109. And some of them expressed how it was kind of an eerie deja vu kind of a feeling. I think that because of our prior planning and preparation, we were able to react rather than go into a panic. How do you react unless you've trained?
Practicing the plan is one of the best ways to see if we will be successful. Not only is it essential for determining if the actions are doable, it identifies any gaps and gives the participants the confidence, know-how, and the ability to carry the plan out. Schools and local law enforcement agencies share the responsibility for your school safety. Having trained law enforcement officers assigned to your school makes a huge difference in establishing and maintaining a safe environment.
If I had my druthers, I'd love to have a black and white, clearly identifiable police car out in front of every school. It doesn't mean the school administrators are doing a bad job. It may mean that here is a school that is focusing on prevention and preparation for dealing with violence.
You want to prevent all of those things that can happen at a school from happening in the first place. Your ideal is, your job is, for someone to say, I don't know why why do we have a police officer here? Don't need him, nothing ever happens. Perfect, you did a great job. That's why you're there.
It's really good for law enforcement to edify, to show that administrator, that principal, that school security officer are the ones that run this school. Our part is just to be a support. And if they can see law enforcement supporting the direction of the school, that says volumes to everyone that's around.
Similarly, when schools, law enforcement agencies, and other community agencies fail to cooperate, the results can be disastrous. Such was the lesson at Columbine High School.
What we now know is that Harris and Klebold were known to the juvenile justice system in ways that were unknown to the educators in Jefferson County. What we now know is that the juvenile justice community in Jefferson County had met before the Columbine crisis with the educators in order to come up with an interagency plan. And what we now know is that interagency plan was never implemented. Now think about that for a moment. It means that the officials in Jefferson County may have been surprised by the actual incident at Columbine High, but they were not surprised that students of that type might be in the juvenile justice system, be returned to school as a condition of probation or part of a diversion program, and if left alone, do even worse.
Look back at some of these tragedies that have happened and realize that people didn't talk. People didn't take that first step, didn't take that proactive approach to dealing with it.
Since Columbine, most school districts are taking very seriously interagency collaboration, combining their interests in maintaining safe schools and in identifying students who may pose a risk, both to others as well as themselves.
In many states like California, Texas, and Florida, local law enforcement is mandated to inform school officials whenever there has been a serious crime that has involved a school-age child, and vice versa, where if something happens that is serious on the school campus, school officials are mandated reporters to law enforcement.
If people can remember 2 words, because you can try to make this stuff difficult, got to tell you it's not. Communication, coordination. You do those 2 things, you're golden.
One effective way of sharing vital information is with an electronic incident reporting form. Information collected gives you the ability to track and sometimes predict trouble.
We recently developed an incident reporting system whereby school police, school administrators, anybody in the district who has access to this form can write a form and share it electronically across 1,100 sites. And that has been a major accomplishment.
Well, one of the things we started to work on several months ago is tracking incidences of bullying and harassment. And technology allows us to amass and convey information in a much more rapid way.
A nice feature about the bullying and harassment tracker is that it's like a giant spreadsheet, and it can sort and organize by time of day, by place, whether it be the parking lot or in the building or in the hallway or at a certain time. And that we can find some tendencies and foresee some potential problems and make corrections before the problems occur.
Regardless of your school's district size or budget, you have many great resources available to you through your local law enforcement agencies. Put these resources to work for you, making them active partners in all stages of the safety planning process. Though the title may vary from campus to campus, the school resource officer, school liaison officer, or school security officer is essential to maintaining a safe school environment.
Over the last several years, there's been a tremendous growth in the area of bringing the officer to the campus. Initially, parents often felt like good night, that must mean there's something wrong with this school. But when you look at the whole concept of community policing, it's not about seeing how many kids you can arrest, but it's about keeping youngsters out of trouble. It's about problem solving. It's about mentoring. It's about dealing with issues on the campus before they occur. And oftentimes the local school resource officer is in a great position to know not only what's happened in the local community, but also what's happening in the school. So consequently, schools and educators and law enforcers can work together to prevent crime.
A school resource officer is considered a school official when they are acting at the request of the educator to maintain a safe school. Now that's huge. That means that in the Safe Schools movement, there is another resource that educators have, a person who exists not just to enforce the penal code or the juvenile justice code, but a person who can act as an educator to search without probable cause, reasonable suspicion, and to combine their instincts with the educator's instincts at getting at a risk before it blossoms on campus. And it's an important development, although we've not seen yet the full evolution of that relationship.
I think it's important for schools to have a partnership with a law enforcement agency. Best case scenario, they have a school resource officer or liaison officer right there in the schools. We know that a lot of problems with crime and delinquency are initiated from school. It's important that schools have that resource available so educators, so teachers and administrators can call upon a member of law enforcement to help them in a situation where it might be a violation of the law, but even as a prevention measure in terms of DARE or GREAT or other programming designed to prevent crime before it happens in the first place.
Well, we're very fortunate that we have a police liaison officer in our building, and that is crucial to our success, because that working relationship, he's in that student assistance team meeting. He can help us once again put the puzzle together, and but also he supports us and helps us make decisions to best meet the needs of kids and best meet the needs of the safety in our building.
We do random searches on a daily basis at the high school level. And if there is a student that is found with a weapon such as a gun, an administrator can't arrest. But by having school police present there at that moment, then they can immediately address the situation, then keep the campus safe, because the weapon is then removed and the person who had the weapon is also removed.
That police officer has lots of roles that's on that campus, whether it's a school resource officer, whatever you want to call that position. And part of that is to coordinate and communicate with all the other people who have a safety role on that campus, which I'll tell you what, I believe is every adult that works there.
He's out and visible in the halls and smiling and talking with kids, and they come and visit with them about anything, and gets to know them, and then it makes it a lot easier for them to come to him if there's a serious situation going on.
Does it occur where sometimes students are so disrespectful and so rude and so poor in their judgment and thinking that it helps to have a school resource officer so we can quickly subdue the student and get handcuffs on the student? Absolutely, it helps. But that's not their number one goal. The number of times that it happens during the course of the school year can be counted on one hand. But it's more to build those relationships, to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
However, if you just use them strictly as law enforcement providers, you're missing a valuable member of your school safety team. As trained law enforcement professionals, these individuals have a wealth of knowledge. Assessing your school's physical structure to determine potential risk, identifying surveillance plans, identifying how to use personnel and technology, developing codes of conduct for students.
A correctly used SRO can and should fill many vital roles on campus, the least of which is law enforcement provider. Instead, their primary duty should be that of a teacher, counselor, problem solver, and crime preventer. If they are successful in doing these roles, their role as law enforcement provider may rarely, if ever, be needed. Protecting your students, staff, and facilities should be your ultimate goal when it comes to safe school planning. However, you must also be cognizant of the legal ramifications of your plans and actions.
The true defining point with any educator in school safety is knowing what the law permits, knowing what the law requires, and then devising solutions to the unique local campus needs without fear of a lawsuit or without fear of liability, particularly under current law.
Litigation is not just about having a school that is named in a lawsuit. Now the attorneys are naming teachers, staff members, school board members, anyone in the educational food chain.
By and large, districts will cover them if they are sued or named individually. Normally they're named in their official capacity, or the district is sued without naming an individual administrator. If an individual administrator is named in their individual capacity, even though they're named individually, the school district generally, if it believes it occurred within the course and scope of their employment, will say, okay, we're going to cover you because you know what? You weren't doing this because you were out on the weekend. You were doing this because you were specifically doing your job.
While activities such as searching lockers, backpacks, computers, as well as reprimanding students for malicious comments they make about other students or teachers on Facebook or Twitter might seem like excellent ways to deter inappropriate behavior, the question is, are they legal?
Administrators need to be very, very careful when they are searching a personal electronic device as to why they want to search it, what the reasonable suspicion is, and how they think they can legally go about making sure the scope is appropriate. Because it's real easy. It's not just a purse where you open it up and there are 20 things in it, or you dump it out on a table. It's a device that can carry thousands of pages of documents, incredibly personal emails, personal data. Essentially, for a lot of these kids, is a log of their lives. And that, unfortunately, has not been really deciphered or laid down by the law.
And so as we move to computers or to the internet or other devices, the rules haven't changed at all. And in fact, the duty of the educator to come up with a policy that works remains the same, otherwise liability will be imposed on them. And so that's a challenge.
We're trying to play catch up with regard to technology, which we are woefully behind on. We're trying to play catch up with regard to harassment, intimidation, and bullying, which is currently in the forefront due to a variety of tragedies all over throughout the nation and the world, quite frankly. And we're trying to play catch up on the impact of those two first areas upon individual civil rights. And the third one really is unfortunately dependent upon either Washington, D.C., or the United States Supreme Court or one of the lower circuit courts to interpret the decisions.
Still, it is important to always consult your school's legal counsel before implementing any policies that may violate someone's legal rights. The latest challenge, or challenges facing schools today, is the double threat of bullying and cyberbullying. Cyberbullying, from a legal perspective, has placed administrators and their policies under the spotlight.
I think in part the reason why cyberbullying is getting so much press, besides obviously I think the tragedies and unfortunately, is that the technology issue is coming to the forefront at the same time that we become really aware of harassment, intimidation, and bullying at school. The discussion for both those issues is being driven forward.
Even if we assume different technological ways of delivering the threat, the way in which it's received and the effects on the student being bullied are the same. Now, that's a policy issue. The underlying law is supportive of educators taking a proactive stance toward bullying, and if juries remain ready to impose liability on the schools, then the policy question becomes one of some urgency. Why indeed are educators incapable of keeping up with foreseeable and predictable targeting of students by a bully on campus?
You know, the law might not be clear, which it's not. We might not have the technology to teach them. But if you receive a complaint from a parent of harassment, intimidation, and bullying, or certainly if they think their child is in crisis, then you need to find out where that line is, and you need to go right up to it. Because you need to be responsive but also responsible is kind of the words that I always utilize. We need to make sure that we are doing everything we can within our power, and that includes not only what's within our ability, but also what law enforcement can do, what other community service organizations can do, what parent organizations can do, and also what other kids can do.
We have additional legal information in the bullying and cyberbullying segments. As with any and all legal situations, it is recommended that you consult your school's or district's counsel. One factor that leads to disenfranchised students is the lack of belonging or feeling like an outcast. When this happens at home or school, kids often turn to gangs or others who prey on these types of individuals.
There comes a time when kids are looking for a place to belong. They're looking for a place to be accepted, someplace where they find a sense of security. And I think what gangs do is gangs have the potential or the reality to provide that kind of thing. So then the question is, do kids want to just go home to an empty house? Or would they rather go to be somewhere where there are people there who accept them, where they belong? And so that fills a need.
Majority of kids, majority of individuals that we all work with, whether we're in the school environment or we're in the law enforcement environment, inside want to do the right thing. Inside, they want to do the right thing, but sometimes don't have all the option or all the tools to know how to succeed.
When kids don't belong, that's when negative thoughts and negative behaviors occur.
I mean, I've been in classrooms where you've got maybe the low end of the social totem pole, so to speak, that the teacher has put in the back, because maybe in the back of the classroom, because maybe they're not so socially acceptable. Wow, that is a hotbed for students to say, I'm dropping out of school, I don't feel happy, I don't feel connected.
We also know that if kids are truant and they're not in, and they're not in school for a variety of other reasons, that they're more likely to get into trouble. So we want law enforcement officers that recognize, hey, this is a good kid. They might be, making some mistakes right now. They might be hanging with the wrong crowd, an older crowd or something like that. So let's turn it around. Let's get that kid back to school then and let them know, this is where you're going to succeed.
And we should understand that in the same way that we want to be builders of a healthy community, we also understand that part of that community is redemption. Part of that community is forgiveness. Part of that community is learning to walk with somebody who has made bad choices and to help them be able to recover.
One of the simplest ways to combat this is for principals, teachers, and SROs to continuously insert themselves into the lives of their students, calling them by name, making eye contact, and having short 15 to 30-second conversations whenever possible.
But it's that principal that walks in every day that remembers that young boy or girl's name and consistently says, how you doing, is a mentor. That officer that walks through and shows that although life can be difficult, you're going to make it, and I'm going to be here to support you. That's a form of mentoring.
It's just as important for the teacher, just as important for the principal, critically important for the police officer or safety officer that's assigned to that campus to know the kids. And if you talk to them and get to know them, they will change their behavior because of that relationship, because that's what's important to them.
We talk about practicing the art of the 15-second conversation. If you're just talking to kids and people just for 15 seconds, hi, how are you doing? And give them a pat on the back. Imagine a young man or woman that doesn't ever get talked to the whole day. Or if they're conversed with, it's in a negative way. That really, I think, sows the seeds of anger that manifests itself into violent behavior and intrusion in school safety.
Your students can also play a vital role in keeping other students engaged in positive behavior. Peer mentoring can be extremely effective in all grade levels. These programs range from nationally recognized programs like MVP to a 4-member peer mentoring group at a local middle school.
We have learned, and students tell us, that they will go to one another many times before they'll go to an adult, especially their parents at this age. And so if they have somebody who's trained that can listen and help them work through problems, whether it's as an individual or between friends, it's a great opportunity to get problems resolved before they get even bigger.
There's a lot of research out there that says peers at times are the best teachers. And I think you would also have to argue that peers at times are the best listeners too. In other words, they have the ability, and I don't know if it's because it removes the top-down type of paradigm or what, but what it does is peers have a connection with each other because of relevancy, because of near age, so common experiences, that they have a way of communicating that is much more effective.
We try to use juniors and seniors as mentors for our freshmen, as we know that people look up to their own peers, and our freshmen are no different. Our juniors and seniors aren't necessarily the 4.0 high-flying, high academic, high athletic achievers. They're solid kids who are successful in their own way. They don't fit any particular mold, but they're able to give good advice to our freshmen, and so we utilize that resource, and we do a lot of neat things with our freshmen.
A great place for school personnel to get involved with students is during before and after school programs. These programs provide students and adults the opportunity to interact with each other on a deeper level, in a casual but structured atmosphere.
If you have after-school programs, you have increased the odds that teachers are going to make connections with students that are not specifically related to their academic content or their specific classroom. And I think increasing those odds, what you've done is you've given those students an opportunity to have a better chance of being educationally successful.
It's important to develop a comprehensive program of activities for youngsters. The data suggests that the time when most youngsters get in trouble is between the hours of 3 to 6 in the afternoon. And so having meaningful programs during those periods of time can be very helpful. Not only will they have something positive to do that can teach them a skill or develop a talent, but it also helps not only keep kids away from trouble, but it helps in terms of keeping trouble away from kids.
While these types of programs may seem like easy targets when budgets are being examined, efforts to reduce or eliminate those programs are often short-sighted, for they provide both tangible and intangible benefits to school life and the overall safety of the school.
We have so many programs across the country that have been cut due to budget constraints, and we haven't been able to always fill those gaps when resources have been cut. And kids suffer as a result.
Told our Board of Education, I said, you know what, the last thing we're going to cut are things for kids. So things have to be extremely bare bones. We've had to cut staff, we've cut employees, which is detrimental to kids, but we've really tried to not cut, programs, extracurricular programs or classes. One, because that's why we're here. So we've sought efficiencies elsewhere.
Every administrator who's faced a crisis has all said the same thing. They never thought it would happen here. And it's very difficult to get school officials to talk about safe school planning oftentimes until there has been a crisis.
If you don't have a real basic safety presence, you're taking risks that go way beyond the dollar cost.
I think that you can build a healthy school community that can stop many things from occurring on the front end. I think you can teach expectations, and you can teach them both implicitly by your example and explicitly by what you communicate and what is taught in the classrooms, on the fields, wherever the school exists.
I think even a pessimist would say that still under the influence of Columbine, that the school safety movement will move forward and that most collaboration that is essential in school districts that know they have a problem will take place with greater ease, with fewer policy barriers than we find taking place right now.
I think there's things that every school has to do. And if it isn't doing it all at one time, if there isn't anything in place, it's little by little. And that's how we got to the point where we are, where we added things little by little. And over 10 years, that doesn't take a lot of time then. Then it's for future generations, because we're going to be here forever.
Our number one goal is every student walk into our building every day feeling safe, and this is a place that they belong.
We sometimes forget that it's not just the classroom teachers. It's the bus driver, it's the cafeteria worker, it's the coach, it's the PE teacher, the music teacher, the band teacher. They're all definitely an integral part. It's every adult that touches the lives of these students. The principal needs to continually keep right out in front. What are you doing for students today? What are the students telling you? What have you heard? Have you committed a random act of kindness so that you've modeled it, so that maybe we can pass it on then and students will commit a random act of kindness. I mean, principals can do so much with just continually coaching and acknowledging and celebrating the good work that the adults in the building do in terms of creating that safe and nurturing and caring environment.
I can't do this alone. I don't pretend to have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. No one of us can do this alone. I won't expect you to know all of it. I won't expect that you expect me to be able to do it all by myself. Therefore, we've got to work together on it.
For more information on maintaining a safe school, please log on to www.mysafeschools.org.